All right, hey everybody, this is Rosh, and you are watching FM9 Basics. This is a YouTube tutorial series I'm putting together to help new and experienced users program all the Fractal products, including the FM3, the XFX3, and in this case, the FM9. So a little about myself. Once again, my name is Rosh, and I build and program guitar rigs out here in the LA area as well as online. Some of my clients include Steve Vai, Def Leppard, Maroon 5, Perfect Circle, Bush, and more. And I wanted to give back to the Fractal community and show some tips and tricks on how to program all the Fractal products, including the XFX3, the FM3, and in this case, the FM9. So you've been watching this YouTube channel pretty recently. I've been putting kind of a series within a series, and these are going to be called gig-ready presets. So in the past, a lot of people have asked me if I have any presets for sale or if I have any presets uploaded to the Exchange. And generally, I've always been relatively reluctant to do that just because there's just so many variables that, I can't account for. And so, I mean, it could be anything from like what kind of music are you playing, what kind of guitar are you playing, what kind of style are you playing? Do you strike the strings really hard or you strike the strings really soft? There's so many variables that I felt like I could never cover in just building one preset. So instead, what I've decided to do is I'm going to be building a bunch of different presets that are going to apply to different players of different styles of music, as well as, different types of guitars and everything. And I feel like as I build more of these presets, there's going to be a preset or two somewhere in there that's going to be useful to you as a player. And generally, these are going to be presets that you're going to be using live. And my goal, again, is that if you just got the FM9, if you just pulled it out of the box and maybe you're a little confused on how to navigate the layouts, or maybe you're just looking for something that you can just start using right away that's going to get you a bunch of different sounds that you can use on your gig tonight. That's going to be my goal. So again, for the power users out there, you may have your own presets and your own sounds that you can dial in on the fly, but for maybe, some of the newer users, this is kind of a shortcut that'll get you there. And again, I'm going to have this preset for sale in the link below. It's going to be, a link to Gumroad, which is a reputable online digital, seller. So feel free to buy this preset, and you can see some of the other presets that I've uploaded in there. And one of my main things too is that I never want there ever to be a financial constraint on people to be using any of their Fractal products. So by all means, if you follow along with this video, you can build this preset from scratch as well, and you don't have to buy the preset. But if you enjoy this YouTube channel, if you enjoy the content that I've been putting out there over the years, by all means, feel free to purchase a preset. And I feel like the price is pretty fair. Feel free to support the YouTube channel. And, again, I'm going to be building a ton of different presets, and it's going to be all different types of amps, all different types of guitars, all different types of styles of music. Well, this is going to be kind of like, what they like to refer to as an all-in-one preset or a kitchen sink preset. And in this case, what we're going to be using is I'm going to be using the AC20. And I'm going to be using a Strat. So, again, this is going to be more of like a pedal platform for many of you users who are used to using one guitar amp and then use a bunch of different pedals to get a bunch of different gain stages, a bunch of different sounds. This is going to be the ticket for you. So again, if you're a Strat player, you like the AC20 or you like a Vox style amp and you like to use a bunch of different pedals to do that, but you just want one main clean sound and a bunch of different pedals, this is going to be the ticket for you. And the cool thing is we have a bunch of different effects here. I've already built the preset out. And then, of course, you're going to have access to all the effects without having to, program in a layout of your choice. I've already went ahead and done that. So let's go over the signal path from beginning. And this is going to be just basically the main clean sound. Here's the neck pickup with a single coil. And the thing about my Strat is I have vintage voiced kind of pickups. I use Sir pickups in my guitars. So that's kind of like the single coils. And I do have a humbucker in the bridge. So again, for you HSS Strat players, this is going to be definitely a good preset for you guys. So here's the bridge. And then here's the middle. And of course, we have the in-between sound. So here is the middle and the neck pickup in between. So position 2. And then here's position 4. And right now, all the knobs are wide open. So the tone knob is fully up on both pickup. On all the pickups, the volume knob was all the way up. And again, when you're listening to this in Vox style amps, you're getting kind of a, almost edge of breakup sound. You dig in really hard. It's going to start grinding up maybe just a hair. it's not perfectly crystal clean, but just close enough. And again, you can dial in your volume knob back a little bit. So here is like the volume at like 8. Get a nice sparkly clean sound. And of course, it works with any of the pickups. So of course, here's the humbucker. Again, we're going for something that's going to be more touch sensitive. In my opinion, for a Vox style amp, you don't have to go for a crystal clear sound. It's got that, really heavy mid range to help it cut through the mix, but again, without sounding super harsh. And, a lot of versatility in an amp like this. I feel like myself and Cooper, we always talked about this amp, and we're absolutely in love with the AC20. It just breaks up in the right way, just has that perfect frequency. And again, it's really super versatile. I wouldn't say that you could do like a fully crystal clear clean sound with it, but again, even with just a little bit of a volume knob adjustment, you can always get a very, very clean sound. And you can play funk with it. Even if you use some of the, middle, in between, out of phase sounds. Okay, so let's go over the signal path. Here we have in the input block just some pretty standard gate settings. They're just to get a little bit of that single coil noise out of there. So next up, we have a volume block, and you'll notice I leave spaces here for you to be able to, add more effects or move some of the blocks around in case you want to. So in this case, we got a volume block, and it is going to be tied to expression pedal 2. So if you have an expression pedal, make sure you put it in expression pedal 2. The PDL2 jack, and make sure you calibrate that correctly. And it's going to function as an like a volume pedal that is going to be in the front of the amp. So you can always put the volume block after the amp as well, so it doesn't affect the gain staging of any of your overdrives right here. And the reason why you would want to do that, of course, is again to keep the gain intact, but still being able to control the volume. And I left that space right here so that it goes before the time-based effect, so you can still swell into things. But there's many users out there who are used to putting a volume pedal right, before their drive block, so that you can get, a cleaner sound if you play. So for example, here's kind of like a distortion sound. And of course, if I dial in the volume pedal back about halfway, maybe, my volume knob on my guitar is all the way up, but you can see it's starting to clean up that distortion sound. Now, that's one kind of behavior that many users are used to, but what you may want to do instead, of course, is if you want to keep the gain intact, but you want to still be able to control the volume, you definitely want to put the volume block after the amp and before your time-based effects. So all you needed to do was, of course, click on this and just drag it here. And of course, bypass this block and save it if you would like to save it in this position. And now the behavior of having a volume pedal after the amp allows you to control the actual volume without affecting the gain. So here's the volume knob all the way fully up. And if I dial the volume pedal back a little bit, you'll notice that I'm totally changing the actual volume of the signal path, but it isn't affecting the gain of the pedal. And this allows you to, of course, dial in the volume back, and then you can use your volume knob to clean up the the gain of the amp. So here it is at 10. Here's my volume knob at maybe 5. And again, you still have ultimate control with the volume pedal. So you can see these pedals clean up really well as allowing you to control the actual volume of the signal path. So it allows you to dial in the amount of gain you want with your volume knob, as well as dialing the amount of volume with the volume pedal. So I'm going to leave it here for the time being. And again, this is just because it's a behavior that many users are used to. So you have options with the volume pedal wherever you'd like to place it. Next up, we have this compressor. And if you've watched some of my other videos, for me, in my opinion, one of the main challenges of playing a Strat or any guitar with single coil pickups is that single coil pickups, as you're going between the neck and the middle pickup, and then you go to these kind of out of phase sounds, the problem is you end up having like a drop in volume. and also the single coils just kind of thin out in general. So I kind of take inspiration from a lot of different players, Andy Timmons, Andy Wood, all these Andys. But a lot of people use a compressor, and it's not really to do a traditional compression sound, but they use the compressor as kind of a clean boost to kind of fatten up a lot of single coils. So for example, if we didn't have the compressor on, here is my single coil sound. But when I go to position 2, which is the neck in the middle, and then if I have a humbucker, so you see there's a lot of different volume, the volume's jumping in and out. And also it, makes the drives react in a different way. So for example, an overdrive sound with a neck pickup. But then when I go to the out of phase sound, and if I go to the bridge sound, some people like this behavior, but I like a little bit more uniform in volume and uniform in kind of fatness, again, using the compressor as kind of a clean boost. So you'll see that it's not a lot of compression, but it definitely has a little bit of level just to kind of push the amp just a hair. And you can see as I switch between the pickups, it meters generally around the same. So there I just went through all 5, pickup positions with an HSS Strat, and you see that it basically meters the same. And so I really like that kind of behavior with a compressor to, kind of just push the amp a little bit depending on what pickup I'm in. And it just allows you to also keep, some of the thickness of the coils intact. And again, this is kind of one of those quote unquote always on kind of blocks. So if you're later on in the video, you'll notice that there's nothing in here to turn that compressor off. It always just stays on. And again, that's just a general thing that I always do when I'm using single coil guitars, namely Strats. So next up, we have the wah pedal, and this is just basically your standard kind of wah sound, pretty generic. There's nothing I need to really address in it other than, of course, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure that it is using an expression pedal in pedal 1 on the FM9. So make sure you have your expression pedal calibrated properly and put it into PDL1 on the back of your FM9. And then this is going to use the auto engage feature. And this patch change reset means that if you're switching from one preset to this one, that the wah will always start in the off position until you move the expression pedal like so. And so what's going to happen is, as you can see, it's bypassed, but of course, if I move the pedal, it's going to turn on and you get your pretty standard wah sound. And this is kind of what it sounds like. And then of course, when I go all the way back to the heel, back toe up position, it turns off right there. So that's the kind of behavior. That means you won't need to use a toe switch or anything like that. You can just use an expression pedal. I do have other videos on this YouTube channel if you would want to use something like a Mission to use the, the toe switch, turn it on. But I generally don't use toe switches to turn on effects. I just like the auto engage feature. So that's pretty much it for a wah. Nothing really, exciting to, delve into. You can, of course, change the wah type to a wah of your preference. I like the Faz wah just because it's not too spiky in the top end. So you can see that the frequency range is about 2000 right there. Whereas some wahs go higher than that. And I just don't like that high spiky thing, especially with a guitar like a Strat where it's already going to be bright. Now, the send and return blocks just are routing the signal path from this send to this return just to give more room for different effects. Again, this space here is if you want to use a virtual capo or something like that, you can add that in here. And of course, this space right here allows you to move that volume block depending on the behavior we just addressed. Now, make sure with this return block, you make sure that the return level is at 100%, or else the send to the return is not going to send any audio signal, or it may even be attenuated a little bit. So just make sure that's at 100%. Now, this section right here, right before the amp block, is all going to be our overdrive section. And if you've watched some of my other videos, what I always like to do with a pedal platform is I like 3 stages of gain. I generally use a clean boost, an overdrive, and a distortion. And the cool thing is that you can, of course, stack these drives together. That's why we're using 3 drive blocks. So you can stack a clean boost into an overdrive, or a clean boost into a distortion, or an overdrive into a distortion to get varying amounts of gain and sustain, especially if you're going to be going between different types of songs, different types of tones that you need. Maybe you're doing a lead sound that needs to be more bluesy versus like super distorted. It gives you a lot of options to stack this. And again, later on in this video, we'll kind of like talk about that with using these things. So treat these as your distortion pedals. Now, one of the things that I always try to do with these gig-ready presets is not every player is going to be the same. Not every player is going to have the same aesthetic and taste. And, you know, if you're in a cover band and you have a specific classic rock set list, it's not going to be as applicable as maybe a blues guitar player or something like that. So each drive block is going to actually have 4 different 4 different drives that I've dialed in. So each of these has, all 4 channels are going to be using different drive blocks, and hopefully something in there is going to, maybe align more with the way you play and what your ears and your taste is going for. And so you can see here in channel A, we have the FET boost, but in channel B, we're using the Tone of Kings, which is the King of Tone pedal. Then we have the Blues OD, and then we have the Esoteric RCB. So each drive block is going to have 4 different channels. And if you prefer, let's say, the Tone of Kings as opposed to what I've dialed in channel A, all you need to do is select the channel and make sure you hit save, so that every time you turn on the clean boost, it's always going to be in this channel as opposed to channel A. So let's walk through a couple of these sounds. Here we have the FET boost, and again, for a clean boost, I'm going for something that's just going to push the amp just a little bit. So if we have a clean sound, and then we just push it a little bit, you can hear it's not affecting the tone too much. It's just adding just a hair of gain, a little bit of grit. As opposed to this. So, again, with Strats, I like to go for that Texas blues sting kind of thing. So, and of course, it works great with a humbucker too if you want some kind of like slightly gritty rhythm guitar parts. Okay, and in channel B, we are using the Tone of Kings as the Analog Man, King of Tone. It's a little darker than that FET boost, but same kind of vibe. You get that Texas sting, I guess. Here's a middle pickup. And in channel C, we have the Blues OD. And again, I treat this kind of the same way Andy Timmons does, where he's using it kind of like as a gritty boost that you can roll back the volume knob to get a kind of a clean sound, but you still have the sustain of an overdrive pedal. So you can see I'm using my volume knob to kind of get a little bit of that extra sustain. Really great for the, our clean arpeggios with just a little bit of hair on them. So I like pedals and clean boosts that kind of do that. Last but not least, we have the Esoteric RCB. This is the Exotic Effects RC booster. Again, this is more of a kind of a bluesy, kind of like low gain clean boost. All different flavors of the same thing. I'm sure there's something in there for whatever you prefer. And of course, one of the cool things with these gig-ready presets is I'm going to be also doing a performance page that allows you to adjust the tones of each drive block as well as the amp on the fly. So if you find that you need more or less gain, you can just turn a knob just like you would a standard distortion pedal. And we'll address that later on in this video. Okay, so that is the clean boost section of this. Now we're going to go into the overdrive section. Again, for overdrives, I generally am looking for something that's going to add more gain than a clean boost, but it's not full-on distortion, usually, in the quote-unquote tube screamer style or tube screamer-esque end. So channel A is going to be the clone Chiron, or aka the clone. So again, we're just going for this kind of sound. And again, the clone's a great pedal. It just gets the amp to just kind of go into full overdrive. And you can, of course, roll back your volume. Next up, we have channel B, and this is the Nobelium OVD, so it's like that Noble Overdrive, same kind of vibe. Just another flavor of the same kind of overdrive thing. Next up, channel C, we have the Jam Ray, aka the Jan Ray by Vemura. It's another great option. Again, it sounds like that kind of overdriven Fender thing. Last but not least, we have channel D, which is the BB Preamp AT, which is the Andy Timmons thing. So a lot of different options there for overdrives. By all means, if you prefer one channel over the other, just make sure you pull up the channel, your preferred channel, and then make sure it's bypassed, and then hit save so that every time you engage the overdrive, it's going to turn on the overdrive in the preferred channel, in this case, channel B or whatever channel you like. So I'll leave it in A for now. Last but not least, the third drive block is going to be our distortion section. And for me, I'm always just kind of going for kind of maybe like a 90s, 80s, 90s rock thing. And again, just kind of a, pretty standard generic distortion sound. So this is the compulsion distortion, aka the OCD distortion by Full Tone. Next up, we have channel B. Oh, and of course, these distortions really work great with the volume knob as well. So if that's too much gain, or, you can always roll back your volume knob. And of course, if you need more gain, you can always stack it with a clean boost or something like that. Or you can stack it with an overdrive. So you can always get tons of sustain if you stack two different overdrives. So a lot of different options for all you players out there. Next up in channel B, we got the Sir Riot again. It's kind of that modded Marshall thing in a pedal. Next up, we have the Sonic Drive. This is the Maxon SD9, a fan favorite of Scott Henderson and Mike Landau. I really like this pedal for Strats. And then last but not least, we have the Shred Distortion. This is kind of the Johnny Greenwood distortion made famous by Radiohead. So again, it gets that kind of thick, kind of high gain sound. So yeah, if you're kind of more of like indie rock or something and you need that kind of distortion, channel D, it might be a good choice for you. So in this case, we'll go back to channel A and then just bypass that. And of course, you can use any channel you want and hit save to make sure it turns that on. All right, next up, we have the actual amp block. The settings are pretty generic, almost at noon, but not quite. The high cut is a reverse presence, so it just shaves off that top end. Again, this amp is a really simple amp in the real world. The real world counterpart is a Morgan AC20. I think it's just like a really fantastic amp, and it being 20 watts allows you to get, a good, the amp to start kind of the tubes to kind of start working hard at lower volumes in the real world. Obviously with the Fractal, you can just adjust the level that you need here. And of course, you're going to have that in a performance page so that you can adjust the gain and the amp level on the fly if you need it. And again, this amp is just kind of one of those great workhorse amps that can do a lot of different things with a lot of different pedals. I didn't use any advanced features or anything like that. I just kind of dialed it in. And again, we'll address that, but most of the tone, in my opinion, always comes from the amp block. So next up, we have the tremolo. And again, this is going to be just like a pretty standard generic tremolo sound. And it's going to be tied to the tap tempo. So of course, it's going to be, swirling up and down in eighth notes. So of course, if you'd rather have just a fixed tempo, you can click this menu right here and select none so that it can be just at a fixed tempo. Or you can, of course, change the subdivisions by clicking this drop down. And of course, if you want it to go in quarter notes as opposed to eighth notes, you can do that. And it's always going to be tied to the tap tempo or the tempo of the preset. So again, a lot of different options for the tremolo. I was just looking for something that's going to be, pretty standard, tremolo sound. That kind of vibe. Next up, we have the chorus. And again, same idea. This is going to be tied to the tap tempo. So you can, of course, always have a fixed position by clicking this drop-down menu and selecting none. So this is, again, going for just a pretty generic 80s-esque chorus sound. So I really dig that chorus. Next up, we have the delay. This is going to be the Deluxe Mind Guy delay. This is going to be, again, if you've been watching some of these other presets, it's kind of basically the same effect. I just dialed it in slightly different depending on the guitar. So this is the Deluxe Mind Guy, aka the Electro Harmonics Deluxe Memory Man. Nice delay that just gets darker with as the repeats go on, and they get a little bit out of tune so that it doesn't compete with the main guitar signal. So you see it gets a little bit darker, a little bit more out of tune, and it gives just like a nice subtle chorusing effect. Really nice. And of course, again, tied to the tap tempo, you can, of course, select the subdivision of your choice or none if you would prefer to have a fixed speed for that. And you can always do that in that drop-down menu. Next up, I got a reverb. I'm using the Studio Reverb for this preset. Again, a pretty generic, standard lexicon kind of reverb, just to give a little bit of space with the guitar part rather than making it sound like it's right up against your ear. Super dry there. This is just given just a hair. And again, the goal for a lot of these gig-ready presets is they're also going to be easy to dial in. So of course, if you want to bring down the mix of the delay or the feedback repeats, or bring them up or down, you can just do that without going too crazy and affecting the rest of the preset. Same thing with the chorus, the mix, and the depth, really easy, as well as the depth of the tremolo. You can totally just kind of adjust those on the fly. In this case, the mix and the time of the reverb are going to be, the basic thing that you're going to want to adjust if this reverb needs any type of tweaking. So next up, we have another reverb block here. In this case, we're going to be using the Nimbo Stratus. This is kind of one of the cloud style reverbs, aka from Strymon. I really like those kind of reverbs, again, for kind of big ambient washy kind of reverb sounds. So it sounds something like this. course, you can stack some of these effects. So if we take the delay in the chorus, you can, if you're playing, ambient stuff, maybe you're playing at your local church or something like that, this can be really good for those kind of sounds. So I'm swelling with my volume knob at this point. Or you can do different types of parts. So a lot of really creative ways to stack some of these effects, just like your regular standard pedal board. And again, that big reverb is something that I think is going to be useful for a lot of guitar sounds. Next up, we have the filter block, and you'll notice that this filter, you may be wondering what it's doing. This is actually going to be a volume boost. So again, for if you need a part to stand out, if you're playing a guitar solo, you just need to bring up the volume with that, so that you can, kind of stand out in the mix. This filter block is going to do that. And you'll notice that there's no EQ here, only the level. So every time you turn it on, it's just going to boost your level by 4 dB. So again, great for solos. So you can see it's just, again, a pretty standard volume boost. Now, next up, we have the cabinet block, and I'll address the outputs in just a second, but we have the cabinet block here. We're using the AC28 Dynacabs. So make sure that you have the Dynacabs correctly installed. Make sure that the preset is also going to be 8.01 or later. So make sure that, I'm sorry, not the preset, but your FM9 unit needs to be the 8.01 firmware or later, or else this preset's going to load blank and you won't be able to use it. So make sure you have your unit at least at 8.01. All the Fractal units are always going to be compatible from the current firmware the preset was built on going forward. So anything that if you want to use this preset, you need to use 8.01 or later. So you can see I'm using a dynamic mic and a ribbon mic here, the settings. Again, the position, if you watch some of my other videos, the position of where the mic is and your mic choice is really a huge determining factor of your tone, if not probably the most important. As you can see that with an amp like this, there's not really any kind of EQ knobs unless you go into the Ideal tab. But I generally use the mic placement as the tone shaping tool right here. And you can see I've done some low and high cuts as well as in the preamp, just in case. And of course, feel free to tweak these to your ears, but this is kind of where they're at for me. Okay, now we can address these output blocks. So you'll see that we have output 1 and output 2. And so on the FM9, you have output 1 and output 2, which are independent of each other. So the out 1 knob and the out 2 knob can be controlled independently. So it gives you a lot of flexibility and options. So for example, you can go out of output 1, going to front of house, going to the mixing board, going to, the sound engineer. And then output 2 can control, for example, a stage monitor on stage. So you have independent control to turn that up or down without affecting what's going to going to front of house or going to the mixing desk. So that's one strategy. I do that all the time, where at sound check, I dial it in so that, output 1 is going to the front of house. The sound guy gets exactly what he needs from me. And then output 2 is going to be something that I can adjust on the fly in the middle of the gig. I can just crouch down and turn up my full range cabinet, up or down as needed for the gig volume. So if the drummer starts playing louder or the band starts playing louder, I can always just adjust that and it doesn't affect anything going to front of house. You can also, of course, put output 2 or, you can do that in reverse or the inverse of that. So out 2 can go to front of house and out 1 can give you options to go to in-ears, to a full range cabinet. One of the advantages of using output 1 for kind of your volume, quote unquote, is that it also has the humbuster outs, the 1/4 inch outs. So you could feasibly go to a full range cabinet and you can go to in-ears as well. And then out 2 can go to the mixing desk or whatever, and you have independent control. I have a lot of content and videos on how I approach this. So feel free to watch the rest of those videos on this YouTube channel. They're a little more in depth than what we're doing here. And you'll see that output 3 right here is before the cabinet block. So for users who are planning on using a Seymour Duncan Power Stage, a Matrix GT800 effects or GT1000 effects to use with a real guitar cabinet on stage, what this allows you to do is to not send any type of cabinet simulation to your power amp. And this allows you to have, again, also independent control of the output 3. Now, what you want to do with output 3 is you always want to use output 3 fully clockwise so that it gets the, a unity gain signal going to your power amp. Use the power amp to adjust your stage volume to send that tone to your guitar cabinet or guitar cabinets of choice, and just use the power amp volume to adjust that. So if you're using a Matrix, it's those A and B knobs on the front. If you're using a Seymour Duncan power stage, it's the big knob, and that's going to control your stage volume. And again, the advantage of this is that you can have your cabinet sound on stage, and then of course you can still send output 1 and or output 2 to front of house or in-ears or both, or whatever situation you find yourself in. And it gives you ultimate flexibility. That's one of the advantages of using an FM9. Really, really great. You can have so much different type of flexibility without having to build 100 presets for every situation. This can cover a wide variety of situations that many users will find themselves in. All right, so let's go to the FC edit, and you'll see that I've already used this per preset override to override any of your factory layouts. And again, this isn't going to affect any of your other layouts of any other presets. This per preset layout only lives within this preset. So if you navigate away from it, so for example, if we go to 401, which is empty, it defaults back to whatever layouts you have there, whether you're using the factory, and in this case I am, or if you have a layout that you really love that you've built yourself, then it won't override that. But this particular preset already comes kind of built in with this particular layout. And you can see we have the clean boost, the overdrive, and the distortion, your time-based effects here, and then your tap tempo. And of course, you hold that tap tempo for the tuner and the volume boost. So at this time, what we're going to do is I'm going to go to an overhead shot, and I'm going to show you kind of how to dial in everything using the performance pages here so that you can make adjustments on the fly in the middle of a gig or a sound check. All right, so now that we're here with this overhead shot, what you can see is we have the FM9, and you have all your effects already within access. So you can, of course, turn on your choruses, your delay, the big reverb, tremolo, volume boost, and you can hold down the tap tempo if you want to turn on the tuner. You have your clean boost, overdrive, and distortion here. Now, you may be presented with this particular page. This is the main home screen that your FM9 will generally boot into. So, of course, if you want to navigate and access the performance pages to be able to adjust any of the overdrive sounds, clean boost or distortion sounds on the fly, you're going to need to make sure you go into the performance page. So all you're going to need to do is hit the page right button right here, and you can see that this Perform PP tab is going to be selected. And now you have access to all your the performance page that I've built in with this preset. This allows you, for example, the A knob allows you to adjust the gain of the amp. So all you need to do is turn the A knob. It'll adjust the gain of the amp. The B knob is going to be adjusting the amp level. And then these three knobs are going to be adjusting the gain, the tone, and the level of the overdrive right here. Now, if you want to navigate to the row below to adjust the clean boost and the distortion, what you can do, of course, is use the nav buttons, and you can go down. And again, the A side, this A knob is going to adjust the drive of the clean boost. The B is going to adjust the clean boost of the level of the clean boost. And then the C knob is going to adjust the drive of the distortion. D is going to adjust the tone of the distortion, and E adjusts the level of the distortion. So navigating between these two will give you access to adjusting all these sounds on the fly, just like if you had a standard, pedal board with some of your knobs there that you want to adjust. So the cool thing is, whenever you start up your FM9 or whenever you turn it on, hit that page right button and go to the performance page, and you can leave it in this performance page in the middle of a gig or in the middle of a sound check, and this gives you access to adjust all your levels. So you can, of course, turn on the overdrive, hear how loud or how quiet you need the overdrive to be, and adjust that, or the level of the amp or the gain of the amp. Now, if you need to access any of your other presets, of course, you can always hit the home screen and then use the value knob to adjust notches to go between all your presets. And you can see that we go back to a standard layout. This is the default layout that the FM9 comes with. But if you have a different layout, that's something that you've dialed in yourself, it'll go default back to that. And again, this particular preset has that. So again, you can navigate some of these other, so for example, you can see some of these other presets that I built. But in this case, again, adjusting on the fly is going to be very useful. You want to use the performance page and use these nav buttons right here to pick which, things you want to adjust. And then, of course, you can just turn the knobs just like a real standard pedal board, and you don't have to worry about that. And again, You can just leave it on this. Doesn't matter what happens, what effects you turn on or off. This screen will remain the same even in the middle of a gig. So now you can see that I've left the output 3 knob fully up if you're going to be using a power amp, and then the output 1 and 2 knobs are going to be independent of each other. So again, if you've dialed in a sound that works for front of house and that's the level that they need, you can always have your full range cabinet go out of output 2, and you can turn that up or down as needed. And of course, you have a lot of different options to do to mess with, and you can always change that. So you can see all the effects are here at your feet in the middle of a gig. That's why we call it a gig ready preset. So that's going to be about it for this particular preset. If you guys need any help dialing in any of your Fractal products, by all means, feel free to reach out to me. For those of you who've already purchased some of these gig ready presets in the past, I really want to thank you for supporting the YouTube channel. You're really awesome, and I really do appreciate that. You can always buy this preset in the link below, as well as some of the other presets that I've built. So feel free to check out those on Gumroad as well, and then stay tuned for more presets. Other than that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.
I'm falling with you, I'm standing with you.